Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Gabe Pyle, Program Director for the Industrial and Innovative Design Program at the International Center for Creativity. I'm here with Alyssa Hawkins, previously Alyssa Vandegrift, a recent graduate of our Industrial Design Program. And Alyssa has offered to join me and talk a little bit about what she does now and where she's at and how she got there. Alyssa, I'm so excited to have this conversation. I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah, me too.
Well, let's jump into it. I have a few questions for you just so that the viewers can get to know you. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, what year you graduated, and what you do now?
Yeah. So, a little bit about myself. So, I graduated in 2022 from the ICC, but currently I live in Florence, Kentucky, and I work in downtown Cincinnati. And I've been in the industry for about 4 years now. But I really started off my career in Cleveland, Ohio, working for RDL Architects. There, I really kind of got my base started, got myself going. They really invested in me to help me grow in the architecture world outside of conceptual design, which ICC teaches you. But from there, I moved down here to Cincinnati area, Northern Kentucky area. I was looking for new work, and then I was like, oh my goodness, where am I going to go? And the Lord just brought me to Hub+Weber. I mean, it was all him. Now I work for them, and I am a director of graphics for them, and I kind of oversee all of the visionary work for every project, whether that's a 3D rendering, realistic or artistic, or any colored elevation, site plans. We also do colored floor plans. We do any kind of 2D work as well as just working with the team on conceptual design. I help them a lot in that area. And then also doing composition and presentation building and any business development that they may need, as well as proposal work to just help us bring in the work. How I got to where I am now, I started at RDL and really worked on my skills up there. I learned the most about the rendering business in architecture there and how that is run in a company. From there, it kind of helped me jumpstart my career here at Hub+Weber Architects because I was building them a foundation for visualization and stuff like that. I would say that RDL really helped me do that, and I'm growing now even more because of it. But yeah, that's how I got to where I am now.
So it sounds like what they have you doing is a lot of the presentation images, a lot of the things that your customers or your clients would see. So if people are looking up Hub+Weber Architects, what they see is probably the type of work that you're doing. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, also if you look on our website, you're going to see a mix between our renderings and visuals, and then also like the post-construction work that photography captures. But yeah, it's a lot of what I do.
So I'm curious, if you're doing a lot of the rendering, what is handed to you, and then what do you hand off?
Yeah. So it depends on the project and then also the stage of the project. But a lot of the times I'm either just given a plan and I build out the site plan in SketchUp, or I'm given a Revit model that I convert into SketchUp because I don't know Revit. But I take those and I kind of build out what isn't already there, because a lot of the times in Revit doesn't do necessarily the rendering details that you would want to showcase on a building or inside of a building. There's a lot of just fine tuning of the model when you get into it. I don't even think Revit does baseboards. You're molding at the bottom of the floor, so that's one of the things that we add in SketchUp. But I'll go in and take it, add materials to it, and then throw it in our rendering an engine, and I'll add a lot of the context and entourage in that as well. And then I also, once I kind of build my scene and get the right shot that I am looking for, and it could be multiple views, and then you never know, I set maybe 10 views per project, and a lot of times maybe we're just kind of picking it in-house. Then I'll kind of gather a lot of my other coworkers, because opinions matter. I'll grab all of them and ask, which views do you think help tell the story the best? Because I made all these 10 views, so I am biased. So I need help kind of giving another eye view to each of these renderings. we'll kind of go through together which ones help tell that story the best. And then maybe we narrowed it down to 5. And if we're doing 2 renderings for a project, then I'll send those 5 to the client for them to pick that view. Now, these won't be the final renderings. They're going to be rough, right? And then as they give feedback and comment, that rendering then develops into something final. But yeah, I feel like that's one way of going about it. Other ways is me starting from complete scratch, not having a Revit model, and then I have to build it completely, which I enjoy the more because I like being just engulfed in the project completely. And a lot of times, because I do help with the schematic design, that's kind of when I'm a part of that, is when I'm kind of building that model as I go from design into our renderings. So that's why I like it more, because I'm just a part of the process more. And then we continue on throwing it in the rendering machine and making it look great. But a lot of it takes time, and that's just 3D, and you got all of your 2D floor plans and your elevations and your site plans that all go into a project that are all really needed to move a project forward, because many eyes see a project before it's completely done and you have to get approvals. A lot of people can't imagine a project quite right unless someone shows them what they're meaning, and that's why renderings are just so vital, because I don't feel like projects could succeed and move forward as well as they do today without those visualizations.
I love the framing. I love the way that you said what views tell the story best, because that is what we get to do as image creators, is we're telling the story of this thing that doesn't yet exist. But we get to help people imagine what hasn't happened yet. And right. That requires a story. That is the storytelling that we get to do. What are some projects that you have been working on recently that you could tell us about?
Oh, yeah. I do a lot of different projects. I mean, as a company, we do a lot of different types of projects. But some of the fun ones are our master planning ones. They're the big picture ones, right? And one of the ones we just finished up spans the masses of Kentucky and Ohio. And that's the new Brent Spence Corridor project. Ohio and Kentucky are looking to obviously expand the highway because more and more people are moving into the area. The unfortunate part is that though that might be needed, the current design that they developed does not take into consideration the communities around that highway. We were hired on just to say, hey, we know this is needed, but maybe we can do it in a different way. So we made a design alternative. And this kind of took us a whole year to do. They're really big projects. They span acres upon acres. Obviously, this one states upon states. It took a lot of community engagement, which is like the number one rule in all master planning projects, is engage your community. Ask for them what they're wanting to see. Your design guidelines will be built off of those meetings. That's what we kind of did. We went out into the public and asked, what do you want? And got feedback, and then moved on with the design. And we came back to them and we were like, hey, this is kind of like a draft of what we're thinking based off of your feedback. Are we getting it right? Are we not getting it right? And then I think we had about 3 meetings, and we did 3 meetings per state. So Cincinnati got 3 meetings, Northern Kentucky got 3 meetings. Yeah, we kind of just went back to them and we got their feedback again. And then the final meeting was showcasing that final idea to them, which was super cool and super fun to see the community actually excited maybe for the project potentially in the future. If our ideas take any matter into like the eyes of the civil engineers who are making these roadways and stuff like that, or each of the cities and states having a project that could affect the future is kind of crazy to think about in a massive way when it involves such a big audience. But that was just one of the fun projects to get involved with, especially since it really heavily involved like our stakeholders. But that was one of them. Another master planning, just because I really love our master planning projects, is we're working with Kenton County in Kentucky, and we are transforming one of their parks that used to be a golf course. We are a part of a way bigger team, right? This is like a major project that we're just an architecture firm. We can't give the additional services that are needed for this project. So we are teamed up with a bunch of consultants for the project, whether that's landscape architects, civil engineers, MEP people. So it's a really big project, and the city's investing a lot of money into this park. One of my favorite parts about the project is this lookout tower that's going to be implemented into the park, as well as like a really big gathering pavilion for families to have events there. But I really like this project because I was tasked with designing the tower, which I just was like, oh my goodness, thank you. Because it's just like the middle of the whole project, and it's what everybody's going to be looking at. The kids are going to go crazy being able to see miles and miles beyond the treetops. That was just really fun to really get into that and the design guidelines that we have built up for the project and what that tower will one day be. We are currently just about ending the schematic design process for that project. So we're kind of entering design development next. Maybe I'll just do one more project because I could talk about them all day. But I got to work with the city of Ludlow and their Ludlow Heritage Museum. I was on site taking pictures of it just so I could model it accurately and whatnot. And they took us downstairs to the basement, and it's completely underground because they put concrete and just buried the basement, which used to be opened. We came up with the idea on that site visit. Let's open this back up and turn it into an amphitheater. Whoa. And so through that, we designed a whole new amphitheater for this so that you can see the history underneath the ground currently in relation to the rail yard. But I'll stop there. I could keep going, but
I can understand why you were so excited about really all three of those projects. And it sounds like from what you just said, a lot of your time, or rather more than I might have guessed, is collaborating and working with other people, oftentimes outside of your own company. Yeah. What does your day-to-day look like? How often are you interacting with other people inside your company, outside your company? And how often are you sitting in front of SketchUp and creating those views?
Yeah, so my day can look all kinds of sort of ways. But if we were talking about the Ludlow project, my day looked a lot of the times me sitting in front of SketchUp or my rendering machine and producing those and modeling and editing and all that good stuff. But I have other days where I spent half the day on site talking to my clients and talking to them about like how we want the renderings to look and what aspects do we need to change about the building to facilitate a museum. And because it's an old building, we need to make sure that everything's up to code, and the ideas that we're preaching here can actually be done. So we want to be think like blue sky, but also think logically at the same time. I could be out on the site talking with my clients. I could be in my office and just modeling and rendering all day, working in InDesign and developing proposals to get projects. And then with that, I talk a lot with our consultants that we add. So those could be our civil engineers, those could be our MEP engineers, and also like structural. I spend a lot of time just talking to them and getting what they could bring to the table for a project to make us stand out more. But yeah, it's also just me talking with my coworkers and asking them for their opinions on a project. And a lot of the times, one thing that my boss really enjoys doing and thinks is very valuable to projects is just bringing we're only an office of 8, so this is why it's doable, but he'll just bring in the whole office to a project and like ask for all of our ideas and comments on where it's currently at. I would say almost every project, at least once, gets a whole office huddle. You're like, oh, Alyssa, you just sit at your machine and render all day, but it's really like a very massive collaboration effort to be put into something like this because it involves a lot of people in the end. Architecture is very collaborative, so never think that everything's completely your own.
What are some things that you've learned about your discipline or about the working world since you've graduated?
So within the rendering world specifically, you have to kind of learn when to say yes and no. Because in terms of clients, you have in a proposal a certain amount of comments, iterations for them to go through, right? Because we can't keep going on a rendering for days. A lot of times in our proposals, we specify how many. And it's their job to mark it all up and tell me as much as they possibly can about an image within a work week day that I give them to review it for each session. What's hard sometimes is a lot of times, more times than I'd like to think, almost if I get a client coming back to me outside of that number that we've already exceeded, asking for more iterations or more edits or something to be added on to the rendering scope that I did not have in the proposal at all. A lot of the times for me, it's learning either when to say yes to it, because either it'll benefit the projects moving forward or it'll benefit us in the Hub+Weber as a marketing tool, or you got to learn to say no, because time is money. The more time I spend on a rendering outside of the scope I defined in a proposal, we're just spending more money at this point. My time is free to them. But yeah, learning to say yes and no is something that I'm still learning. I'm not super great at it still. A lot of times I go and ask my boss what he thinks before I give a final answer. But I didn't really necessarily have to have that role in my position at RDL. Coming here to Hub+Weber, that I am managing this sector of their services, I have to become better at knowing those things. That's one thing I've learned. I've also learned that no matter what phase of the design you're in, knowing that the project is never completed, even if it's in construction, the architecture's job is not completed until you are handed the certificate of completion, because we have ran into so many issues in the construction phase. And I can recall one really big issue that happened via our civil engineer's office, that the whole building was shifted when they were building it in construction because they read the documents, went wrong. You might think all your stuff is stamped, it's ready to go, it's been accepted by permits. But even when you're out on that field, things can go haywire and you can go back to the design drawing board. Until you get that certificate, nothing's ever complete, and just know that things might change, and that's okay. It's just a part of the nature of architecture. But
you mentioned something about time is money. Once you get into the working world, you realize, I not only can I do this faster, but I have to do this faster.
Yeah.
What are some ways that your rendering process has gotten faster? Are the things you realize that you could take shortcuts, or the things you can leave out? What are some ways that you've expedited that process?
Yeah, so I always keep a library of things that I've used in the past. Not to keep things repeated throughout every rendering I do. That's why there's a big library. But I have kept assets that I've really liked, and that'll help me pull things in really quickly. Every rendering engine gives you a mass amount of assets that they have built in. Making sure that you click your favorites, because it'll save all your favorites, so you'll go back through and find them again. That's always something that speeds the process up. But I mean, honestly, rendering in general, it's understanding what file size you need, because the rendering engine takes time to render a bigger file size rather than a smaller one. That's honestly, when it comes down to it, the thing that matters the most. It's is this going to be put on a billboard, or is this just going to be up on the internet? But a lot of it also, I would say a good 60% of a rendering is model time, modeling it. So being quick there benefits you more. Also, understanding what a good composition looks like. In the foreground, I do a tree, and then the middle ground is the building itself. And then the background is usually my context, maybe trees, maybe it's additional buildings, a city skyline, whatever it might be. And then scattered throughout all of that, you have more trees, you have foliage of it as in bushes. You have people. People are a really key thing to renderings, especially exteriors, because they help bring things to life. And it's not just a dead zone with nobody living in it. I always have also layers on so that if I need to change something really quick, I can turn something off and on. That's a thing in SketchUp. Do it. It helps. It might be annoying, but it really does help. And then
Yeah, I've had some students that had just a lot of foliage in their design, and just putting that on its own tag to turn that off anytime you need to move the camera around makes the process so much faster.
So much faster. So much. I can't even, it's crazy. And then also giving your materials like the space that they need to be the actual material. Some of them look flat. There's no texture. There's no shine where there needs to be shine. Just all these things. Super, like, rendering is also, you have to have a very detail-oriented eye. And there's so many things that go into these to make them look, if you're doing a realistic image, as realistic as it possibly can be. But if you're doing an artistic rendering, which there's there's space for both types in the world of architecture. We offer both at Hub+Weber for that reason. You could be a little bit more lenient on those materials looking realistic versus not, obviously, because it's more of a sketchy, hand-drawn rendering. But yeah, the still composition still applies for both. Your foreground, middle ground, and background all apply. Where you put trees and people, you never want to put people where they're kind of taking over the scene. You want the building to still be the centerpiece. But
yeah, you never want the people to be the subject. You want them to be the context.
Yeah.
And sometimes they even add a little bit of scale as well. I am curious. I've seen in architectural rendering, there are different styles of including people. Are you dropping an asset in and it's just like a little video game character with the face and the clothing and everything? Do you do the blurry person technique? Do you do a shadow person technique? Do something else? What do your people look like in your renderings?
Yeah. So for realistic, I normally just plop the people from the engine in. But for the artistic ones, a lot of the times what happens is I will use the engine first just to kind of just build my scene first, and then I'll bring it into Photoshop and kind of then put my artistic magic over it. But a lot of times I'm meshing just a PNGs of people I found on the internet into my rendering, and then I sketch over everything. So I want every aspect of my rendering to have some sort of line weight symbolizing it, and then I add contextual shadows using straight lines on top of those people to kind of blend them into the artistic vision, and then also kind of using materials not so much in the engine but as Photoshop, bringing those in as well to give it a little bit more artistic look.
You're not going to hurt my feelings with this answer, but how much drawing do you still actually do?
I would say a lot of the times we start off a project sketching. We're very messy sketching just to kind of get the idea, whether it's on our white eraser board or on the piece of paper or whatever. We're sketching still. Even into conceptual, when we're kind of sketching over a model and we're what if we did this instead? There's definitely still sketching, and with my artistic renderings, I am sketching those, obviously, but I'm more so tracing, I guess you can say. But not I guess maybe what you would do in product design, sketching out and
I'm mostly just excited to hear that you're actually moving a pen or a stylus with your hand and you're not just clicking and dragging. Because I think you mentioned something about adding line weight, and I think there is something, so we talk about that in our early classes, that's the soul of the human artist that you get to put in the image. So all I'm trying to say is I'm glad to hear that you still get to put some of that into the work that you're doing.
Oh yeah, 100%, for sure. It makes it more fun.
It does make it more fun, yeah. And it makes it feel like it's yours. You did that, you made it. There's something that came out of you. So you've already mentioned some of the software suites that you are working with. A little bit of Revit, a little bit of SketchUp, rendering engine. You referring to rendering engine. Is there a particular software suite that you're using for that?
Yeah, so my company uses Enscape. Trying to get them to move to Lumion though, because I do prefer Lumion. Revit, I talked about it. I do not know Revit. I know how to export and how to get to every type of image that they create, whether it's sheets or a 3D view or whatever. I don't really know how to work in it. I think that students should learn Revit because the crazy thing is that it's industry standards. But what's even crazier is that no school teaches it. I have all of our interns know Rhino instead of Revit.
Okay.
And I just find that so crazy in a
Yeah.
sense. So anybody from the ICC, if you want to learn Revit, you're going to be miles ahead of any intern I've had.
That is encouraging to hear. Yeah, we ask our senior students as they're working on their capstone projects, specifically if they're doing architectural projects for their capstones. We give them assignments where they find tutorials for a new software that they want to learn. We nudge all the architecture students, learn Revit.
Yeah.
You know SketchUp. SketchUp's great for concepting, but
Yeah.
Revit allows you to get into the nitty-gritty details.
Yeah.
But I've also worked with Revit. I cannot make it do what I wanted to do. I spent an entire day trying to get a second landing on stairs that wasn't at the top, and it would not cooperate with me. I'm sure someone who spent longer in the program would know how to do it quickly, but sometimes it does not cooperate. I love that you've said work with Revit. You can work with Revit, but if you can't create what you want in Revit, export that, create it in SketchUp, make it in another program. Do whatever you need to do to make it faster, because you said time is money, and it's one thing to spend time to learn something there's value in that, but when the client's paying you, you got to get the job done.
Exactly. Other stuff we use is AutoCAD. I think that a lot of in architecture that's slowly becoming deceased, but it's very, very prominent in urban planning and landscape and civil design. So it's a platform that you still need to understand, because you will be getting those files and you will have to open them and read them and be able to work inside of them for your own needs. Definitely still relevant, just not as relevant in architectural as it used to be. I use Adobe. Everybody uses Adobe.
Everybody uses Adobe. Doesn't matter what you do, you're using Adobe.
Yeah.
What do you make your presentations in?
InDesign. All of them are InDesign.
Okay. How many of the things that you learned introduction to architecture classes and in your junior year and in your senior year, how many of those things do you actually get to do now? Because it sounds like you're actually doing a lot of rendering, but you do some work in the schematic phase.
Yeah. So I would feel like almost everything I've learned, I've used in some form or function. Every project starts the program, and every program needs dimensioning kind of to get there. A lot of projects they're already built projects, and maybe you're renovating and reorganizing the way something is laid out. Or even new projects, you can do this too still. Because you have your footprint of your building and you're trying to figure out what's going to go where, but you want to do it quickly. Without numbers, but just general knowing that a conference room is bigger than an office. Using bubble diagrams to kind of circle out those different areas that you might be needing in a specific building. Showcasing those connections from one room to another, or to the hallway, or where an elevator is towards the entrance. Those are really helpful for us, when we're trying to think quickly about a floor plan, because floor plans are consistent throughout every phase, and so they're needed. And then as we find that best flow through Lord knows how many bubble diagrams, we move into then maybe your Revit or your AutoCAD, and then we start to actually dimension those out and see, okay, maybe we're not getting the proper dimensions we need by code with this plan. Maybe let's try the other plan that we like next best and whatnot. We kind of start from there, and you get your floor plan, and then simultaneously, really, as you're figuring out your floor plan, you're kind of looking at the exterior if you're doing a project where it calls for exterior design. Where windows are going, where the entrance or stairs or another fire exit needs to go. Thinking about circulation still, thinking about all those things as you continually develop your design. And I know that in Carlos's class, we did a lot of volume studies before kind of going into your final concept. And we do a lot of that as well. And we use that as the base to our exterior sketches. What we want the exterior to look like, disregarding specific dimensions and stuff like that. And then we take those designs and we model them, and we put some materials on them to see if we really do like this design, and we show them to the clients, and the clients see almost every aspect of the phases and what needs to go into each of them. almost everything that you're learning as a student at the ICC in architecture, you will be using in the design field later on in life. Whether you're starting from scratch or you have a roughed out perimeter of a building to work with, like you're going to be needing those tools to build up to that design that you create in the conceptual design process. And it's all very, very helpful to learn those things and to remember how to do those things when it comes to getting your first job. But
yeah, because the way you just described the way your company uses bubble diagrams, it almost sounds like that's the iterative process for just the arrangement of spaces, where it's almost like those are your sketches.
Yeah.
You said thousands?
That was probably a little exaggeration. We just go through many. But
there are going to be a lot of iterations of a bubble diagram as you're exploring space arrangements.
Yes, they're very much needed, and you'll make many iterations.
Well, just a couple more questions for you, Alyssa. If you were hiring or reviewing a portfolio of a recent grad, what's something that you would hope to see in that portfolio, or what's something that you would see that makes you say, oh yeah, they know what they're talking about, and we can have a conversation?
Yeah, storytelling. Number one thing. What I even was a culprit of was just showing like how good I am at the end, right? Your renderings and maybe your pretty sketches that you like just cleaned up real good for your portfolio. There's no additional like information, maybe even to describe where you got from point A to point Z potentially. Yeah. For me, like I really want to see the design process of that project. I want to see your bubble diagrams. I want to see your sketches, your volume studies. I want to see your final conceptual design. Maybe you're moving into design development. That's kind of where your model starts to really kind of become more detail oriented as you move into, well, what wouldn't really happen in ICC, but like your construction documents, which a student construction document could be kind of like section views, maybe some detail sections of a specific area that you have coming together, especially if you're modeling it. If there are students who know Revit, like showcasing, hey, I know how to do these things in Revit. That would be super cool to see throughout your design of a project. But I want to see almost everything. Like I want to see how you think and how you work. Obviously there's a lot going on, so you maybe can't put like absolutely everything, but like compile it in a way that tells me a story from beginning to end. I really want to be able to see your full breadth of the design process. So I would love to see that. I really think students should really like put time into their About Me page, their portfolio, to really describe to them, what part of architecture do you like the best? Do you really like doing the conceptual design phase? Do you like rendering? Do you actually enjoy construction documents? There are a lot of students that we get, they're like, we love construction documents. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're nerds, but okay. So, but yeah, if those are things that you enjoy, we want to make sure that you're doing those things. So really describing like your passions in your portfolio as well. I think that's about it.
Yeah. Well, what you said about storytelling, we tell our students in at least one of the projects, communicate your process. Show a case study of how you go from start to finish. And especially if I would hope that if a student is trying to go into architecture, that they would use as their case study an architecture project, so that they could show here's the brief, the site, the bubble diagrams, the floor plans that we develop from those. Communicating your thinking, especially in the age of AI, is going to be so important. Yeah. Because you need to show, I know how to do this. I know how to think and problem solve. Now, certainly AI is going to make it that much easier to problem solve, but the students still need to show that they know how the process is done. Yeah. So it's refreshing to hear you say that. We say storytelling all the time. And sometimes I worry that people don't know what we mean, but storytelling of you, who are you? How do you go about solving your problems? And tell a good story, and people want to listen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Alyssa, thank you so much for spending some time with me this afternoon, so we could talk a little bit more about what you've been up to, how work has been going for you. Before we go, are there any other words of wisdom that you would offer to our students?
Learn Revit. I'm going to hound that into them. Learn Revit. Also, if you want to be an architect one day, go get your master's. And if you want to pursue what I do, really dive deep into design trends, what's going on, be in the know, and then also really dive deep into your renderings and fine-tuning them and becoming more detail-oriented, because that's really important in this field. So yeah, that would be really nice.
That is all excellent. Are you interested in pursuing your master's to become an architect?
No, I'm not, but mainly because it scares me, because I hear horror stories from my coworkers and I'm like, I'm good.
Yeah. But it sounds like you said if you want to become an architect, go get your master's. And if you want to do what I do, pursue trends. It sounds like you're really enjoying what you're doing.
Oh yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it.
Oh, that's so good to hear. Well, Alyssa, it's been so nice chatting with you. Nice catching up. So glad to hear that things are going so well for you. Please send our regards to Cam as well. And we'll remind these students that they got to do storytelling. If they want to become an architect, they should pursue their master's, spend time modeling, learn ways to get faster, and pay attention to the details.
Yes, absolutely.
It's awesome. Alyssa, thanks so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Gabe. Bye.